Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule Collection, available on the Amazon. Chapter 1, Entering the Portal. As Mira and Uncle Roy plunged into the swirling vortex, everything around them shifted. It was like falling into a dream, colors blurred and twisted together, light flashed and then disappeared, and for a moment, Mira felt as though she was weightless, suspended in space and time. Her heart raced, her breath shallow as she gripped Uncle Roy's hand tightly, unwilling to lose him in the chaos. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the sensation stopped. They landed with a soft thud on an unfamiliar surface. Mira blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dim light of the new world around them. The ground beneath them wasn't solid like the rocky floor of the mountain but instead felt like soft, shifting sand. It was cool to the touch, though strange ripples passed through it as if it were alive, responding to their presence. The sky, or what passed for a sky, above them was a swirling mass of green and purple, with flashes of light dancing across it like silent lightning. There were no stars, no clouds, just a vast, endless canvas of colors in motion. Whoa! Uncle Roy's voice was soft, almost a whisper, as he took in the alien landscape. Mira's heart pounded. They had entered the portal. Around them, the landscape was ever-changing. In one moment, jagged rocks appeared on the horizon, only to melt away into rivers of light in the next. Strange, translucent trees shimmered in the distance, their branches swaying despite the absence of any wind. The air was still, and yet there was a soft, melodic hum, as if the world itself was alive, singing a song only it could hear. Mira's eyes widened as she stared at the swirling landscape. What? What is this place? She whispered, her voice barely audible. She couldn't help but feel a mixture of awe and dread. It was beautiful, but it was also unsettling. Nothing felt stable here. The portal, Uncle Roy replied, though his voice carried uncertainty. It's something between worlds. I think your dad was right. This place isn't like anything we know. Mira took a deep breath and looked down at the pendant hanging around her neck. It was glowing softly, pulsing in rhythm with the strange hum of the portal. She had the feeling that it was reacting to the energy of this place, like a key fitting into a lock. Her mother had made it this far, but what had happened to him after? Do you think he made it out? She asked. Uncle Roy hesitated, his face etched with worry. If anyone could figure this place out, it was your mother. But we have to be careful, Mira. We don't know the rules here. As if on cue, the ground beneath them shifted again, causing Mira to stumble. The landscape rippled, and suddenly, figures appeared in the distance, ghostly, translucent figures that seemed to float just above the surface of the ground. They were human-shaped, but they didn't walk or move like people. Instead, they glided silently, their forms flickering in and out of focus. Mira's breath caught in her throat. What are they? Uncle Roy squinted at the figures, his brow furrowed. I don't like this, he muttered, his voice low. Let's keep our distance. The figures seemed to be aware of them now, though they didn't approach. Instead, they hovered at the edge of the shifting horizon, watching. Their presence was eerie, but there was something oddly familiar about them, as if they had once been real people, trapped here in the portal. Let's keep moving, Mira said, feeling a shiver run down her spine. She didn't want to find out what those figures wanted. The sooner they could find her mother, the better. They began walking across the soft, shifting ground, the orb from the mountain floating in front of them like a guide. As they moved, the landscape continued to change, morphing from forests of strange, glowing trees to fields of shimmering light, and then to jagged cliffs that seemed to stretch into infinity. It was disorienting, and Mira had to constantly remind herself to stay focused on the orb. But the portal wasn't just playing tricks with the landscape. The further they traveled, the more Mira began to feel a strange pull in her mind, as if the portal itself was reaching into her thoughts. Flashes of memories, some real, some impossible, started to play in her head. She saw herself as a young girl, running through the park with her mother. She saw the day she left, that last smile she gave her before disappearing on her expedition. But then, she saw something that had never happened, her mother standing in front of the swirling vortex, calling her name, telling her to turn back. She stopped in her tracks, gasping. "Mom?" "Mira." Uncle Roy called, grabbing her arm. "What is it?" She blinked, and the vision vanished. The swirling sky returned, and the image of her mother was gone. I thought I saw him," Mira said, her voice shaking. "He was right there, calling me." Uncle Roy frowned, his eyes scanning the horizon. "The portal plays tricks, Mira. It gets into your head. We have to be careful. Stay focused on the real world, not what this place shows you." Mira nodded, though her heart still raced. It had felt so real, her mother, just a few steps away, calling her name. But Uncle Roy was right. The portal was more than just a strange landscape, it was alive, testing them, pulling at their emotions. They continued walking, and soon the orb led them to the edge of a massive cliff that dropped off into a swirling abyss. Mira stared down into the chasm, her stomach flipping at the sight of it. The cliff stretched out in either direction, seemingly endless, and there was no clear way across. The orb hovered at the edge, its light flickering as if waiting for something. Uncle Roy's brow furrowed as he scanned the endless chasm. "How are we supposed to get across this?" he muttered, his voice laced with doubt. "There's no way." Mira's eyes were drawn to the pendant again, which glowed brighter now. She stepped closer to the edge, feeling the strange energy radiating from the abyss. Her heart pounded, but she knew, somehow, that this was another test. The portal wasn't going to make it easy for them. "Maybe." She started, unsure if it would work. "Maybe we're supposed to use the pendant." Uncle Roy gave her a skeptical look. "What do you mean? How?" With a deep breath, Mira held the pendant aloft, her heart pounding. The moment she did, the swirling abyss reacted, a surge of ethereal light rising from its depths. The ground trembled beneath their feet as a shimmering bridge of light began to materialize, stretching out across the chasm. Mira's breath caught in her throat. "It's working." Uncle Roy stared in awe. "I guess that's our way across." With the glowing bridge in place, they stepped cautiously onto it. The light beneath their feet was solid, though it shimmered with every step, as if it might vanish at any moment. Mira kept the pendant held tightly in her hand, focusing on the orb ahead of them, which floated across the bridge, guiding them forward. The journey across the bridge felt like an eternity, but finally, they reached the other side. The orb led them into another twisting tunnel, darker this time, with the hum of the portal growing louder. Mira could feel it now, something was drawing them closer, something important. Her mother was out there, somewhere, waiting for her. And she was getting closer. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule Collection available on the Amazon. Chapter 2, Mira confronts the portal. The twisting tunnel seemed endless as Mira and Uncle Roy pressed on, the darkness around them growing thicker. The hum that filled the air grew louder with each step, vibrating through their bones. Mira felt the pull of the portal stronger than ever, it was as if the very air around them was alive, whispering secrets she couldn't quite hear. And then, without warning, the tunnel opened up into another chamber. This one was unlike the others. It was vast, stretching farther than Mira could see, and the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. The walls were covered in shimmering, iridescent symbols, similar to those she had seen on the stone gate, but these were more intricate, more ancient. They pulsed faintly with light, casting strange shadows across the floor. At the center of the chamber stood a figure, a tall, cloaked silhouette, its features obscured by the hood of its robe. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, but Mira felt its presence deep in her chest, a cold, unsettling sensation. This wasn't just another ghostly vision. This was something real. Uncle Roy's grip tightened on his staff as he edged closer to Mira. "Stay behind me," he warned, his voice low. His eyes, narrowed with suspicion, were fixed on the cloaked figure. But before he could do anything, the figure raised its hand, and the room shifted. The walls seemed to dissolve, the symbols swirling around them like a storm. The ground beneath their feet vanished, and suddenly, Mira and Uncle Roy were standing in the middle of a vast, open space, no longer the chamber, but a field. A familiar one. Mira's breath caught in her throat. This couldn't be real. The sun dappled through the leaves, casting familiar shadows on the winding paths. The scent of freshly cut grass filled the air, a nostalgic aroma that tugged at her heartstrings. It was the park, her childhood playground, yet something felt off. A chill crept down her spine as she realized this couldn't possibly be the same place. Panic surged through her as she spun around, searching for Uncle Roy. The once familiar park was now an eerie, silent expanse. "Uncle Roy," she called out, her voice echoing through the empty space. Her heart pounded in her chest as a sense of dread washed over her. There was no answer. Panic surged through her. This wasn't right. This wasn't where they were supposed to be. It was a trick. The portal was playing with her mind again. And then, she saw her. Her mother, standing beneath the old oak tree, her figure bathed in sunlight. A smile played on her lips, the same warm, inviting smile Mira had always loved. But as Mira drew closer, something was amiss. Her mother's eyes, once filled with love and warmth, now held a cold, distant gaze. Mira's breath caught in her throat. There, beneath the familiar oak, stood her mother, her figure bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Her smile was warm, her eyes filled with a love that seemed to pierce through time and space. But as Mira drew closer, a chill crept down her spine. Something about her mother's gaze, something in the way she moved, felt off. It was almost as if she were a ghost, a haunting echo of the past. "Mom," she whispered, taking a tentative step forward. "Is it really you?" Her mother's outstretched arms beckoned Mira closer, a silent invitation to step into the illusion. Mira's heart yearned to embrace her, to feel the warmth of her mother's love once more. But a voice, a tiny whisper of doubt, warned her to resist. This wasn't real. It was a trap, a cruel deception. "Mira," her mother finally said, her voice soft and familiar. "I've been waiting for you." Tears welled up in Mira's eyes. "I missed you," she whispered, taking another step toward him. "I've been looking for you. I came to find you." "And now you've found me," her mother said, her smile growing wider. "You don't need to go any further. Stay here with me. We can be together, just like before." Mira's blood ran cold. This wasn't her mother, not the one she remembered. The woman before her was a hollow shell, a puppet controlled by a dark force. Her mother would never ask her to abandon her quest, to surrender to despair. "No," Mira said, her voice trembling. "You're not real." Her mother's smile faltered, and the warm expression on his face turned cold. "Why do you doubt me, Mira? Don't you want to be happy? Don't you want to be with me?" Mira took a step back, her hand tightening around the pendant. "You're not my mom. This is just another trick. I won't stay here." The figure of her mother darkened, her eyes narrowing into something far more sinister. The warm park around her began to dissolve, the grass turning to ash, the sky darkening into an endless void. The oak tree withered and crumbled into dust. Mira's heart raced as the world fell apart around her. "You're not real," she shouted, gripping the pendant tightly. The illusion shattered, and suddenly, Mira was back in the chamber. The cloaked figure stood before her, its hand still raised, as if it had been controlling the vision all along. But now, its posture has changed. It seemed disappointed. A chilling silence filled the chamber as the figure's voice echoed, "You have failed the first test, child. But fear not, for many more trials await." Mira's heart pounded like a drumbeat in her chest. She forced herself to steady her breath, her voice resolute. "I'm not afraid of your games," she declared, her eyes locking with the figure's. A sinister smile crept across the figure's lips as it lowered its hand. The room shifted and warped, the symbols on the walls pulsating with a menacing energy. A new trial awaited, a darker, more perilous challenge. Uncle Roy materialized beside her, his expression a mix of confusion and fear. "What in the world?" he stammered, his eyes darting around the chamber. "It was a test," Mira said, her voice steady now. "The portal is trying to trick us, but we can't let it get into our heads. Uncle Roy nodded, though he still looked uneasy. We need to be careful. This place is dangerous. The figure's gaze was fixed on Mira, its eyes burning with a cold, otherworldly light. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized the true nature of this being. It was a guardian, a warden of the portal, and it was determined to test her to the limits of her endurance. The orb, drained of its light during the trial, began to pulsate with renewed energy. It hovered towards the far side of the chamber, beckoning them forward. Mira and Uncle Roy exchanged a wary glance, the weight of the unknown pressing upon them. A sense of unease settled over Mira as they delved deeper into the heart of the portal. She could feel its gaze upon her, a watchful eye that saw all, knew all. Every step they took was a test, a trial, a challenge to their very souls. They had survived the first trial, but they knew this was only the beginning. The portal was a labyrinth of trials, each more perilous than the last. What horrors awaited them in the depths of this otherworldly realm? Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule Collection available on the Amazon. Chapter 3, Uncle Roy's Test. The orb, a beacon of hope in the darkness, led them down a winding corridor. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the portal. A chill ran down Mira's spine as she felt the world around her shifting, morphing, twisting. Mira glanced at Uncle Roy, his face etched with a mixture of fear and determination. He hadn't spoken a word since the ordeal, his mind preoccupied with the horrors they had witnessed. She wondered if he would be able to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She was about to ask him if he was okay, when the corridor abruptly opened up into another cavernous space. This time, it wasn't the surreal, shifting landscape of before. The walls here were solid and jagged, like a real cave, though the same strange symbols pulsed faintly in the stone. But something was different. Mira felt it immediately, an oppressive weight in the air, a sense of dread that settled in her chest. The orb floated ahead, its light dimming slightly, as if even it was wary of this place. At the center of the cavern stood another figure, much like the one they had encountered before. But this one was different, its presence was heavier, darker, and its hooded form seemed to radiate a palpable sense of menace. Mira's heart pounded in her chest as Uncle Roy's body stiffened, his eyes widening in disbelief. No, he breathed, his voice barely audible. Alarmed, Mira turned to Uncle Roy, her voice filled with concern. What's wrong? What is it? Uncle Roy's gaze was locked onto the figure, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. Slowly, the figure lifted its hood, revealing a face etched with age and malice. The man's eyes bore into Uncle Roy's soul, a silent accusation that hung heavy in the air. A shiver ran down Mira's spine as she recognized the intensity in Uncle Roy's eyes. This wasn't just a stranger, this was a man from his past, a man who held the key to a dark secret. Roy, the man's voice was a venomous whisper, filled with a hatred that seemed to seep into the very air. You abandoned us to our fate. Uncle Roy took a step back, shaking his head. No. I didn't have a choice. You have to understand. You left us to die, the figure roared, stepping forward with a sudden ferocity. The very fabric of reality seemed to shudder as the man's rage erupted, sending tremors through the cavern. You saved yourself, but you left us behind. Mira's heart pounded in her chest as she witnessed the raw emotion on Uncle Roy's face. She had never seen him so vulnerable, so broken. The weight of the past was crushing him, threatening to consume him entirely. Uncle Roy, Mira's voice was gentle, a soothing balm to his tormented soul. Snap out of it. This isn't real. It's just another illusion. But Uncle Roy wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on the figure, his breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't know what else to do, he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. It was chaos. I couldn't save everyone. I tried. The figure's voice was a venomous hiss, each word a dagger to Uncle Roy's heart. You abandoned us to a fate worse than death, it spat. You are a coward, a traitor. The words hit Uncle Roy like a physical blow. Mira could see the pain in his eyes, the guilt that had been festering for so long. He had never spoken about his past, not in detail, but whatever had happened, it was clear that it haunted him. Uncle Roy, Mira pleaded, her voice filled with desperation. Snap out of it. This isn't real. It's just a trick, a twisted illusion. But the figure's grip on Uncle Roy's mind was strong. It stepped closer, its form growing more solid, more menacing. You could have saved us, it said, its voice a low, dangerous whisper. But you didn't. And now, you have to live with that. Overwhelmed by guilt and despair, Uncle Roy collapsed to the ground, his body racked with sobs. I'm so sorry, he cried, his voice a mere whisper. I failed you all. Mira's heart ached as she witnessed Uncle Roy's despair. The man who had always been her beacon of strength was now a mere shadow of himself, consumed by the darkness of the past. A surge of defiance ignited within Mira. She stepped between Uncle Roy and the figure, her voice firm and unwavering. Enough, she demanded. This is a twisted illusion, a cruel deception. The figure's gaze turned to Mira, its eyes cold and calculating. You cannot comprehend the depths of his betrayal, it hissed. He is not the man you think he is. I don't care. Mira said fiercely. I know Uncle Roy. He's been there for me every step of the way. Maybe he made mistakes in the past, but that doesn't define who he is now. You have no right to judge him. The figure was silent, its gaze locked on Mira. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of doubt crossed its face. But then, the darkness returned, its grip tightening. He must atone for his sins, the figure declared, its voice dripping with malice. Only then can he be truly free. Mira knelt beside Uncle Roy, her voice gentle but firm. Uncle Roy, she pleaded, don't let this darkness consume you. You are stronger than this. We will find a way out of here, together. Uncle Roy lifted his head, his eyes filled with pain and regret. I can't, he whispered. I've carried this guilt for so long, Mira. It's too much. Mira squeezed his shoulder, her voice filled with warmth and understanding. You don't have to carry this burden alone, Uncle Roy. I'm here for you, always. For a moment, it seemed like her words might not reach him. But then, slowly, Uncle Roy took a deep breath and nodded. He rose to his feet, still shaky, but with a new determination in his eyes. Uncle Roy turned to the figure, his voice was firm, his gaze unwavering. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, he admitted. But I've learned from them. I won't let the past define me. The figure regarded Uncle Roy with a newfound respect. A slow nod acknowledged his acceptance of the past. You have confronted your demons, the figure's voice was gentle, almost soothing. The portal tests the soul. Only by accepting the past can one move forward. With that, the figure began to fade, its form dissolving into mist. The oppressive weight in the air lifted, and the cavern seemed to brighten slightly, the symbols on the walls pulsing with a softer, more welcoming light. Uncle Roy exhaled slowly, his shoulders loosening their tense grip. He turned to Mira, his eyes filled with gratitude and relief. Thank you, Mira, he said softly. You've helped me find my way back. Mira smiled, though her heart was still heavy with the weight of what she had just witnessed. You don't have to face anything alone, she said softly. We're in this together. The orb, which had dimmed during the test, flared back to life, its glow brighter now. It hovered toward the far side of the cavern, guiding them once again. Mira and Uncle Roy exchanged a glance before following it. As they moved forward, Mira couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. They had both faced their darkest fears in the portal and come out stronger on the other side. But she knew, deep down, that this wasn't the end. The portal still had more tests in store for them. And they were only just beginning. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule Collection available on the Amazon. Chapter 4, The Challenge of the Portal's Guardian. The air in the cavern seemed lighter as Mira and Uncle Roy pressed on, but the weight of what they had just endured still lingered between them. The orb floated ahead, its glow stronger now, as if guiding them with renewed purpose. Mira's grip on her pendant tightened with each step, her mind racing with questions. What had the portal been trying to teach them? And what was coming next? They emerged from the narrow passage into yet another chamber, but this one was unlike anything they had seen so far. It was massive, soaring walls lined with intricate carvings and towering stone pillars that seemed to reach into infinity. The ceiling was lost in shadow, and the entire room had an ethereal glow, as if it existed outside of time itself. At the center of the chamber stood two towering statues, guardians, Mira realized with a shiver. They were carved from the same dark stone as the rest of the chamber, but their eyes gleamed with a strange, otherworldly light. Each one held a massive spear, the tips pointed toward the ground as if in silent warning. Uncle Roy's voice was barely a whisper, his words laced with a sense of foreboding. "We're almost there," he said, his eyes fixed on the orb. Mira nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The air hummed with energy, stronger, more dangerous than before. A sudden chill ran down Mira's spine as the orb's light began to flicker, dying in short, irregular bursts. The chamber was plunged into darkness, broken only by the eerie glow of the guardian statues. A deafening rumble echoed through the chamber as the ground began to tremble. The guardian statues, once inert, sprang to life, their stone limbs flexing and their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. With a thunderous roar, they lifted their stone spears and charged towards them. Mira's heart pounded in her chest. "Uncle Roy. I see them." Uncle Roy's voice was a panicked whisper as he yanked Mira back from the edge of the chasm. The stone spear struck the ground with a deafening crash, sending shockwaves through the chamber. The guardians were not merely alive, they were ancient, powerful, and hungry for blood. Without another word, the two of them sprinted toward the far side of the chamber, dodging the massive stone spears as they crashed down around them. Mira's lungs burned with the effort, but she didn't dare slow down. The guardians were relentless, their every step shaking the ground beneath them, their glowing eyes fixed on their prey. "We can't outrun them forever." Mira shouted, her voice barely audible over the deafening din. "There has to be another way." Uncle Roy's eyes darted across the wall, searching for a solution. His gaze fell upon the intricate carvings, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "The symbols," he exclaimed. "They control the guardians." Mira's eyes followed Uncle Roy's gaze, her attention drawn to the ancient carvings that adorned the walls. The symbols, once dormant, now pulsed with a sinister energy, their intricate patterns weaving together to form a terrifying tableau. "There." Uncle Roy pointed towards a specific symbol, its glow intensifying. "That's it. That's the one we need." Mira's gaze followed Uncle Roy's pointing finger to a large, circular symbol etched into the wall. It pulsed with a blinding light, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. But the symbol was directly in the path of the advancing guardians. "We'll never make it there." Mira gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'll distract them." Uncle Roy shouted, his voice filled with determination. "You get to the symbol and stop them." Mira's eyes widened in disbelief. "No, Uncle Roy, you can't," she protested. "I can." Uncle Roy's voice was firm, filled with a resolve Mira hadn't heard since their ordeal began. "Trust me, Mira. I'll be fine. Just get to that symbol and shut them down." Before Mira could react, Uncle Roy lunged to the side, drawing the attention of the towering guardians. With a deafening roar, one of the statues turned its wrathful gaze upon him, its massive form blocking out the light. Adrenaline coursed through Mira's veins as she sprinted towards the symbol, dodging the flying debris and the earth-shattering blows of the guardians. Her legs burned, her lungs ached, but she refused to give up. The air crackled with energy, the very fabric of reality seeming to bend and warp. Mira pushed through the oppressive force, her determination unwavering. The symbol pulsed with a blinding light, drawing her closer. Behind her, the roar of the guardians echoed, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked behind her. Mira refused to look back, her focus solely on the task at hand. The fate of the world rested on her shoulders. Mira pushed herself to her limits, her legs burning with exertion. Finally, she reached the symbol, her breath ragged, her heart pounding. The intricate carvings pulsed with a raw energy, a mesmerizing dance of light and shadow. With trembling hands, Mira touched the symbol, a surge of energy coursing through her veins. Her vision blurred, her senses overwhelmed by the raw power of the portal. Time seemed to stand still, the world holding its breath. A deafening roar echoed through the chamber as the ground trembled beneath their feet. The energy within the symbol surged, unleashing a force that shook the very foundations of the portal. The statues froze. Their glowing eyes dimmed, and the thunderous footsteps that had shaken the chamber came to an abrupt halt. Slowly, the massive stone guardians lowered their spears, their movements sluggish as if they were returning to sleep. The fiery light in their eyes flickered once, twice, and then went out entirely. A heavy silence settled over the chamber, the only sound the rhythmic rise and fall of Mira's breath. She leaned against the wall, her body exhausted but her spirit elated. She had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. Uncle Roy limped towards her, his face etched with relief and exhaustion. "Mira," he gasped, his voice hoarse. "You're okay?" Mira exclaimed, a surge of relief flooding through her. Uncle Roy managed a weak smile. "Thanks to you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We wouldn't have made it without you." Mira forced a smile, her legs trembling with exhaustion. "Neither was I," she replied. A heavy silence descended upon the chamber, the only sound the soft rustling of their clothes. The guardians stood like stone sentinels, their power extinguished. Mira turned to the symbol, its glow now faint and flickering. "Do you think it's over?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Uncle Roy shook his head, his expression grim. "This is far from over," he warned. "The portal has more in store for us." Mira's heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing. The portal was relentless, pushing them to their breaking point. She knew that the true test was yet to come. "We have to keep moving," Uncle Roy urged, his voice filled with determination. "The end is near, but the greatest challenge lies ahead." Mira nodded, her body aching with fatigue. With renewed determination, she followed Uncle Roy deeper into the heart of the portal. The orb, their only beacon of hope, flickered to life, illuminating the dark passage ahead. A sense of dread washed over Mira as they stepped into the darkness. The portal was a living, breathing entity, its tendrils reaching out to test their limits. The portal wasn't just testing their strength or their resolve. It was testing their very souls. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule Collection available on the Amazon. Chapter 5, Reunion and Revelation. The tunnel narrowed, the air growing still and heavy. The orb's light flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. A sense of anticipation filled the air, a mix of excitement and dread. Mira knew they were nearing the end, the final test. The trials they had faced had tested their limits, both physically and mentally. Now, as they stepped into the cavern, she felt a shift in the energy of the portal, a sense of finality. The cavern was vast, with high walls that seemed to shimmer with the energy of the portal. But this time, there were no guardians, no statues or symbols. In the center of the room, bathed in a soft, ethereal light, stood a single figure. Mira froze. It was her mother. "Mom?" Mira's voice trembled, disbelief washing over her as her eyes locked onto the familiar figure. Her heart raced. This had to be another trick, another illusion. The portal had already used their deepest fears against them, why not their deepest desires? Uncle Roy stepped forward, his face tight with suspicion. "Mira, be careful. The portal can." His warning hung in the air, but Mira was already drawn to the figure. The familiar face, the warm smile, it was her mother, or so it seemed. Tears welled up in her eyes as she rushed towards her. "Mira, wait." Uncle Roy called out, his voice filled with concern. But Mira was lost in the moment, oblivious to the danger. Mira halted a few feet away, her heart pounding in her chest. Is it really you, Mother? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Her mother's smile was radiant, her eyes filled with love. It's me, my dear, she replied, her voice soothing. Mira's heart swelled with joy and sorrow. This was the moment she had longed for, yet a part of her knew it was too good to be true. Her mother was gone, lost to the passage of time. The figure before her seemed so tangible, so real. With trembling hands, Mira reached out, her fingers brushing against her mother's arm. The warmth, the familiarity, it was too much to bear. Warmth. Real warmth. Overwhelmed with emotion, Mira embraced her mother, her tears falling freely. Years of longing, of grief, were pouring out in a torrent of emotion. I've missed you so much, she whispered, her voice cracking. Her mother's arms enveloped Mira, offering comfort and solace. I know, my dear, she whispered, her voice filled with love. For a moment, everything else faded away, the portal, the tests, the danger. It was just Mira and her mother, together again. The feeling was overwhelming, like a part of Mira's heart that had been missing was finally whole. But as quickly as the moment of joy had arrived, it began to unravel. A subtle change, a flicker of darkness in her mother's eyes, signaled that something was amiss. Her mother pulled away, her gaze filled with a bittersweet tenderness. You've grown so much, Mira, she said, her voice filled with pride. Mira smiled through her tears, but her mother's expression remained serious. But there's something you need to understand. A wave of confusion washed over Mira. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. Her mother sighed softly, her hands resting on Mira's shoulders. I'm not here to stay. The portal has allowed this reunion, but it's only temporary. There's a reason you're here, Mira. There's something you need to see, something you need to know. Mira's heart ached. You're not leaving, she asked, her voice filled with dread. Her mother shook her head, a single tear rolling down her cheek. My time here is fleeting, she explained, her voice soft. But before I go, I must impart a crucial truth. Mira's mind raced, trying to process what was happening. This reunion, this moment, it was everything she had wanted, but it was slipping away. I don't understand. Why did the portal bring me here? Her mother's gaze held a knowing look. The portal is a gateway to truth, she explained. It reveals not only the secrets of the universe but also the secrets within yourself. Mira's confusion deepened. What truth? She asked, her voice small. Her mother's form began to fade, her voice growing distant. The portal has chosen you, Mira, she said. A destiny awaits you, a destiny intertwined with the fate of the portal itself. A shiver ran down Mira's spine as the realization dawned upon her. Chosen? What did that mean? Her mother's smile faded, replaced by a look of serene acceptance. You are more powerful than you know, Mira, she said. The choice is yours. Mira's heart pounded in her chest. I'm just an ordinary girl, she protested. Her mother's form flickered, her voice growing fainter. Trust in yourself, Mira, she whispered. The future of the portal rests in your hands. Before Mira could say another word, her mother's form dissolved into the air, leaving nothing but the faint echo of her voice behind. Mira stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind reeling. Her mother was gone, again. And this time, she had left Mira with more questions than answers. The cavern felt suddenly empty, the silence deafening. Mira. Uncle Roy's voice was gentle, pulling her back to the present. He approached her cautiously, his face lined with concern. Are you okay? Mira wiped away her tears, her voice barely a whisper. I don't understand, she confessed. She said I'm chosen, that I have a special connection to the portal. Uncle Roy's brow furrowed in confusion. Chosen? What do you mean by that? Mira shook her head, her mind racing. She said I have a power, a connection to the portal. But I don't understand what it means. Uncle Roy's expression softened, and he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll figure it out together, Mira. Whatever this connection is, we'll find the answers. Mira nodded, though her heart was heavy with the weight of what she had just experienced. The reunion with her mother had been brief, but it had left her with more questions than she knew how to handle. The portal had shown her something important, but the full truth was still out of reach. The orb pulsed with renewed energy, beckoning them forward. Mira knew that the true test was yet to come, a challenge that would push her to her limits. And neither was she. The portal had chosen her, and she was ready to embrace her destiny, no matter the cost. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule collection available on the Amazon. Chapter 6, Embrace or Defy. Mira and Uncle Roy pressed on, the light of the orb illuminating their path with a soft, steady glow. Mira's mind was still reeling from the revelation her mother had shared. She had a connection to the portal, a power within her, but what did that mean? And why her? The tunnel narrowed, the air thick with anticipation. The orb's soft glow illuminated the path ahead, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. A sense of awe and dread washed over Mira as she ventured deeper into the heart of the portal. They emerged into a vast, ethereal chamber, its walls shimmering with celestial light. At the center of the room stood a figure, cloaked in shadow, their presence both alluring and terrifying. But it wasn't the platform or the swirling lights that caught Mira's attention. It was the figure standing in the center. He was tall, with a cloak of dark, shifting mist that seemed to merge with the shadows of the portal. His face was obscured, but Mira could feel his presence, powerful, ancient, and terrifying. The air crackled with energy as he turned toward them, his voice low and resonant, echoing through the chamber. "You have come far, young one," the figure's voice boomed, echoing through the cavern. "But the greatest challenge lies ahead." Mira's heart raced as she exchanged a fearful glance with Uncle Roy. "Who are you?" Uncle Roy demanded, his voice filled with suspicion. The figure didn't answer. Instead, he focused on Mira, his gaze piercing despite the shadows that covered his face. "Mira," he said, his voice softening slightly. "The portal has chosen you. You possess the potential to become something more, something powerful." Mira stumbled backward, her mind racing. "What do you mean?" "What power?" she stammered. The figure raised a hand, and a surge of energy pulsed through the air. Mira felt a strange sensation, a tingling sensation, as if something deep within her was awakening. "The power of the portal flows through you," the figure continued. "You have already felt it. It guided you through the trials. It allowed you to face your fears, to solve the puzzles, and to defeat the guardians." Mira's throat tightened. "Why me?" she asked, her voice filled with confusion. "I'm just an ordinary girl." The figure's gaze held a knowing glint. "You are destined for greatness, Mira," it said. "The portal has chosen you, and with it, a power beyond your imagination." Mira's mind raced, trying to grasp the implications of the figure's words. A connection to the portal? A power within her? It was too much to comprehend. Uncle Roy stepped forward, his voice filled with protective defiance. "What do you want with her?" he demanded. The figure turned its gaze to Uncle Roy, its voice cold and indifferent. "This is not a matter of desire, but of destiny. Mira must choose her path." Mira's brow furrowed. "A choice?" she echoed, her voice filled with uncertainty. The figure nodded, his dark cloak swirling around him like mist. "Yes. You can choose to embrace the power within you, to become a guardian of the portal, to protect it and wield its strength. Or, you can turn away, deny the power, and leave this place. But know this, if you choose to deny the portal, its power will fade from you forever. You will never return." Mira's heart raced as the weight of his words settled over her. Become a guardian of the portal? Protect it? What did that even mean? And if she refused, would she lose this connection forever? Would she lose her mother again? Uncle Roy's voice was tight with concern. "Mira, you don't have to do this. You don't owe the portal anything. We can leave right now." Mira glanced at him, her mind spinning with uncertainty. Part of her wanted to leave, to run as far from this place as possible. But another part of her, the part that had felt the portal's power, that had seen her mother again, wasn't so sure. The figure's voice echoed through the cavern, its tone both alluring and menacing. "The choice is yours, Mira," it said. "Choose wisely, for there is no turning back." Mira's heart pounded in her chest as the weight of the decision fell upon her. The power of the portal coursed through her veins, a tempting allure. The thought of protecting the portal, of perhaps seeing her mother again, was intoxicating. But at what cost? She would be sacrificing her ordinary life, embracing a destiny fraught with danger and uncertainty. A heavy silence filled the chamber, the only sound the crackling energy of the portal. Mira weighed her options, her mind racing. Finally, Mira found her voice. "What happens if I accept?" she asked, her voice steady. The figure's eyes gleamed with ancient power. "You will become a guardian of the portal, wielding its power to protect this realm," it said. "You will shape the future, and leave your mark on the universe." Mira's hands trembled as she posed the question. "And if I refuse?" she asked, her voice firm. "And if I say no?" she asked, her voice steadier now. The figure's voice grew cold. "If you refuse, the connection will be severed, and you will return to your ordinary life. The power of the portal will fade, and you will never return to this realm." Mira's heart ached at the thought of losing that connection, of losing her mother again. But could she really take on the responsibility of guarding the portal? Could she handle that kind of power? Uncle Roy stepped closer to her, his voice soft but urgent. "Mira, think carefully. This isn't a decision you have to make for anyone but yourself. Whatever you choose, I'll be with you." Mira met his gaze, her chest tightening with emotion. Uncle Roy had been with her through everything, through the tests, through the danger, through the grief of losing her mother. He had always supported her, no matter what. And now, he was giving her the freedom to choose her own path. Akumah Audiobooks. You are listening to Guardian of the Portal. Book 1 of 7 in Iron Rule Collection available on the Amazon. Chapter 7, Mira's Decision. The choice before her seemed impossible: embrace the power of the portal and become its guardian, or walk away and lose her connection to the portal, and her mother, forever. The weight of it pressed on her chest, but deep down, something felt wrong. As the figure stood silently in the swirling mist, Mira's mind raced. This couldn't be the only way. Why should her fate be tied to the portal's demands? Why should she have to choose between the power to protect it and leaving her mother behind once more? There had to be another option. Mira's voice, though small, was filled with defiance. "No," she declared, her eyes locked with the figure's. The figure's expression turned to one of surprise. "No," it echoed, its voice laced with disbelief. "I won't choose between being your guardian and losing my mother forever," Mira declared, stepping forward. "There has to be another way. I won't let the portal decide my future or my family." The air around them seemed to shift, growing heavier with tension. The figure's dark cloak swirled ominously. "The portal does not allow for disobedience. You were given a gift, one that few ever receive. If you refuse to embrace it, you must walk away." Mira's eyes flashed with defiance. She could feel the portal's energy pulsating around her, testing her, but she wouldn't back down. "I'm not leaving without her," she declared. Uncle Roy stepped forward, his voice filled with determination. "We won't let the portal control our destiny," he declared. "We'll find another way." The figure's form seemed to waver, as though the very fabric of the portal was responding to their defiance. "You underestimate the power of the portal," the figure said, his voice colder now. "It is not a matter of choice. The portal requires." Mira's voice echoed through the cavern, filled with a newfound strength. "No," she shouted, defying the figure's authority. A surge of energy coursed through her, a power she had never felt before. This was the power her mother had spoken of, a power that was hers to command. She would not be controlled, she would not be broken. She would be the master of her own destiny. Mira's breath quickened as she focused on that spark, letting it expand within her. The cavern around her seemed to react, the lights flickering, the energy shifting. She could feel the portal's resistance, but she pushed back, her determination fueling her. "I won't be your puppet," Mira declared, her voice filled with defiance. "I will use the power of the portal to save my mother, and you won't stop me." The figure's eyes narrowed, its voice laced with a chilling threat. "You dare defy the portal?" "I'm not defying it," Mira retorted, her voice unwavering. "I'm harnessing its power for my own purpose." Mira extended her hand, her fingertips brushing against the orb. A surge of energy coursed through her, filling her with power and purpose. She embraced the energy, bending it to her will. Uncle Roy's voice, filled with a mix of awe and fear, broke the silence. "Mira, are you sure?" Mira nodded, her eyes burning with determination. "I'm sure," she replied, her voice unwavering. The orb pulsed with light, and suddenly, the chamber around them began to shift. The shadows that had filled the room receded, replaced by a soft, golden glow. The figure before them flickered, the misty cloak dissolving as the energy of the portal flowed through Mira. And then, from the light, another figure emerged. Mira's breath caught in her throat as her mother's form appeared once more, solid and real, standing just a few feet away. "Mom." Mira's voice broke with emotion as she rushed forward, pulling her mother into a tight embrace. Tears streamed down her face, her chest heaving with relief and joy. Her mother's arms enveloped Mira, offering comfort and solace. "You did it, my dear," she whispered, her voice filled with pride and love. Mira pulled back, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You're really here?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her mother's smile was radiant. "Yes, my dear," she replied. "You've saved us both." Mira's tears fell freely, tears of joy and relief. She had faced the darkness, embraced the light, and emerged victorious. She had saved her mother, and in doing so, she had saved herself. The figure in the shadows had disappeared entirely, leaving only the soft glow of the portal's energy in the chamber. The power still hummed around them, but it no longer felt threatening. It was simply, there, a part of her now. Uncle Roy approached, a broad smile on his face. "You did it, Mira. You found a way." Mira smiled, wiping her tears. "We did it." Her mother's hand rested on her shoulder, a comforting presence that Mira had missed for so long. "You've grown so much," her mother said softly, her voice filled with pride. "You didn't just pass the portal's tests, you changed the rules." Mira laughed lightly, the tension finally breaking. "I guess I did." As the orb floated back toward the center of the chamber, its light dimming slightly, Mira knew that their journey through the portal was coming to an end. She had faced the portal's challenges, learned the truth about her connection to it, and made a choice that was entirely her own. And now, she was leaving with her mother by her side. Uncle Roy clapped a hand on Mira's back. "Ready to head home?" Mira nodded, her heart full. "Yeah, let's go." Together, the three of them turned and walked back toward the tunnel, leaving the chamber of the portal behind. Mira paused at the entrance of the tunnel, taking a final look at the chamber. The once threatening portal now held a sense of peace, a reminder of the challenges she had overcome and the power she had awakened within herself. As they stepped into the sunlight, Mira felt a sense of tranquility wash over her. She had faced the unknown, conquered her fears, and emerged stronger than ever. The portal had changed her, and she knew that she would carry its power with her, forever. The future held endless possibilities, and Mira was ready to embrace them all. Akumah Audiobooks. You have reached to the end of the chapter. This story consists total of 7 chapters, as such 7 videos. Consider subscribing for more epic tales by Akumah Audiobooks and refer to channel playlist for better experience and sequence.